Hey guys, Jim coming at you here in the Red Room. There we are. Uh, Not 4 a.m. this time, but I'm home from work today and wanted to take a couple minutes to say a quick goodbye to one of my heroes. We got the word late last week that early last week Neil Peart passed away, and the rest of the band was not really are not really big Rush fans and not really that aware of. Sorry, just trying to get the light out of your face. Not really aware of what his contributions were. But for me, he was a lot of the reason I got into music, and particularly the style of music that I did. I had some early exposure to rock and roll in its heyday in the early '70s. I was a young child and had heard some of the stuff. But by the time I was 10, I had kind of moved on from it. Didn't It preferred the obviously much more musically capable jazz musicians that my dad listened to, guys like Bob James and uh, David Sanborn and Spyro Gyra, Herbie Hancock, Herb Albert, a lot of those guys. Many other names. Ronnie Laws is another one that I really liked at the time, and had pretty much moved away from pop music as a whole. Really didn't like any of it. And then along about 1981, a friend of mine played me 2112, and it was a revelation. I was like, wow, this is rock, but it's not mindless. It's this whole song tells a giant story, and and it's a very interesting one. It speaks to individuality and what it means to stand up for yourself, and then the musicianship was just spectacular. On top of that, and here were guys that could compete with, like I said, the jazz greats, chop wise, that I was listening to at the time, and so really stood out, and it was because of that album, and in particular, that I started listening to rock and roll a little bit. Um, it was my second concert ever was the Signals tour. They came through Dallas in 1983, and I never missed another Rush show after that, with two exceptions. One, I was in a military academy, so I wasn't really free to go to the Hold Your Fire tour. And then I was out of money and couldn't go to the Clockwork Angels tour, and really regret that one, because it turned out the Clockwork Angels tour had all of my favorite songs. They played The Analog Kid, they played Middletown Dreams, they played Grand Designs, all these less well-known Rush songs that were huge favorites of mine, and I missed all of them. I did get to see all of those songs aforementioned on the tours for their respective albums, though. They did. It was just sad to miss the callback. Oh, Bravado was another one, although I did get to see them play that on other tours. And that's really, a great song right there to just sum up what Rush was to me and what Neil's attitude was. One of his most beautiful sets of lyrics. Very powerful moment in the song. The line goes, "When the music stops," and there's a break in the music there. It's perfect. There's just silence, and the word "stops" rings out for just a moment, and then it just flows right on. One of the things Rush was very good at was having those moments without breaking stride, and this was one of the great ones. When the music stops, and there's only the sound of the rain, all the hope and the glory, all the sacrifice in vain. If love remains, though everything is lost, we will pay the price, but we will not count the cost. Beautiful words of Bravado, which is the name of the song, from Neil there about what's important, and he brought that very clearly. If you hear the stories, obviously I never met him, but if you read the stories of the people that did, he brought that to everything he did. Maybe something that says the most about him is that in an interview on the Roll the Bones tour, uh, he said, I'm finally getting to feel like I'm as good as everybody thinks I am. And of course, he had already been for more than a decade there, considered the greatest rock drummer of all time. And it was funny. That was an interesting admission for him. And but and it maybe even sounds a little conceited. I'm finally as good. Feel like I'm as good as they think I am. Uh, but it says everything about him that the very next thing he did was literally break everything back down to the very beginning, went back to the fundamentals, got a new drum, actually I say new, it may be the first drum instructor he ever had, but got a drum instructor and literally started rebuilding his style from the ground up. And I mean, to get to the point where you're literally at the pinnacle of your profession and then say, you know what, this could be better, and to make it better, I'm going to trash everything and go right back to the beginning. And he didn't actually trash everything. I mean, he did incorporate his old style back, but as part of his lessons, he went right back to the fundamentals, went all the way back to the ground on a 4-piece kit, and learned how to play an entirely different way. And to me, that says so much about what he is and his approach to life, a growth mindset of moving forward. And I think that had to serve him well with some of the tragedies that hit him later. That I think his mindset had to enable him to be able to pick up and move on. For those that don't know, he lost his wife and daughter both over the course of a year, 2 separate incidents, but just had to be devastating. But he overcame that, went back to playing, came back with a fury, and it's not for nothing that the next song they recorded was One Little Victory. And I'm terribly sad. I'm crushed by this. There were really 3 voices in my adolescence. When you're a teenager, you find literary voices that help you speak your mind and help you find your philosophy and the way you're going to approach life. And they say the things that resonate with you and make you go, yes, this is how I want to live life. And for me, though, there were 3 people. Douglas Adams showed me the absurdity of life, and that it was not only okay but important to laugh at it. Roger Zelazny showed me the complexities of life, and that so many different paths could weave in and weave out, and you could never understand all of it. His World of Amber was such a big place, and he showed so much by even just little hints as he built that. And I was always, to me, took it as a wonderful expression of what could be, but also knowing that you were never going to know it all. You were never going to. Sorry, I'm terrible at this. I'm trying to find my own face on the camera here. And then last was Neil, with his lyrics about individuality and freedom, and that it meant simply choosing and then accepting or responsibility, choosing the consequences of your actions when you chose the action, and having the bravado to deal with that, to pay the price and not count the cost, in order to have a free life, in order to have ownership of your own life. That was the way to do it. And so that's without question been a major influence on my whole life, as well as my decision to play the kind of music that I do. All comes from hearing 2112 as a 13-year-old, some almost 40 years ago now. And so that, certainly could not let his passing go without remarking on it. And I'm saddened by it. but I'm not sad. There's a life, as I told a dear friend who also appreciates Neil, a life there worth celebrating. And so I'm spending the time watching my Clockwork Angels tour video, the one I missed, and thinking about and celebrating what a wonderful thing it was that Neil Peart was in the world, and that I got to see and appreciate some of his contribution, and to be in some way some of his contribution. Who I am is partly built by him, and I think that's maybe the best compliment I can give. So there you go. We got a big show coming up for you guys on February 1st. And I hope you guys check in and watch it. We won't be playing any Rush. Like I said, the rest of the band is not terribly taken with Rush, and they're pretty complicated, and we're not going to pull a Rush song together in 2 weeks with everything else that we're trying to do. But I certainly couldn't let this moment pass without saying something. And so here we are. And he's someone who was willing to pay the price without counting the cost, and my life was richer for it. So we'll see you guys soon. Bye.